Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you happen to be. We've got an extraordinarily happy and special show for you today. My name is Scott, and with me is Trina Paulus, who most of you know as an author of Hope for the Flowers, but you do a lot more. Uh, in fact, you were a sculptor before you were an author. Isn't that true, Trina?
Yes, I started when I was 8 with the clay from the backyard that didn't crack when I found it down in the ravine. And today, you see my gold stuff? This is not typically me at all. And see my crown? This was when I was crowned the monarch queen of Montclair. And this is Epiphany. This is the three trilogies, feasts of Epiphany. Today's the baptism of the Jordan. Yesterday was 12th night, the 12 days of Christmas, mostly, you know that song. But this is the feast of the wise men bringing the gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh yesterday. And today is the baptism of the Jordan, when the heavens open up and everybody there, when John the Baptist is baptizing Jesus, the heavens open up, but this is my beloved Son. This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. And the third part of the trilogy is this part of this is considered, this is the Eastern Church's big feast, that they have this mystical connection that this is a nuptial feast, the marriage of God with humanity in the body of Jesus. So these are points at which things are manifest through the ordinary life of Jesus and his ordinary body that he took on, that we celebrated Christmas. And this is now the turning toward Epiphany, manifestation, where these shots and like unexplained sort of mystic things flash through. The wise men coming from the east because of a star. My goodness. They're not kings. They were wise men. And I'll tell you more about that whole experience a little later. But then there's also the baptism at the Jordan. And then there's the wedding feast at Cana, when Mary says, do whatever you tell you. And he made water into wine. It's because this is seen by the Eastern Church as a nuptial relationship, that we humans, ordinary humans that are created humans, are the church, the body of Christ. And he cleanses crimes. Let me say that wonderful, unusual antiphon, which I could actually sing to you, but maybe I should sing it. But I'll say it first. This day, the church has been joined to her heavenly spouse. For Christ has cleansed her crimes in the Jordan. That's the baptism. With gifts, the Magi hasten to the royal nuptials, the wedding feast. And the guests are gladdened with wine made from water. Now, the Western church, most of us watching, don't think like this, but it's a terribly interesting, imaginative thing to think in that terms of the wedding feast, the wondrous exchange between God and our human nature in the person of Jesus. So that's what this feast is about. So this ends my whole Advent Christmas sort of riff that I've been on in these last weeks. And so this is the day I wanted to show you my nativity set, because this was a big adventure in my life, the making of it. I was at Grailville, and we had done the Holy Family, and we had done the Ad Sum, and we had done the Fiat statue, which I think I showed you before in one of these other things. And they wanted a nativity set. Okay, that was really tough. So I'm going to swivel my camera and hope that Scott can help me get it in a good place here so you can see the whole thing. There's 17 pieces. And I'm going to show you because everybody has a gift for this child. And here we have, does that look okay, Scott? Is that
That
pretty?
that that looks fine. And if you can see the screen, you can adjust it a little bit to your taste. I tilt down personally. I tilt down just a little bit, and then I understand that you're going. Yeah, and then I
Okay.
understand that you're going to show us some pieces individually, aren't you?
That's my intention with my shaky hands. You all have to know that one of my problems is shaky hands, but we work with our diminishments as we live, don't we? We do the best we can within them, every one of us. So here's the heart of the matter. This is Mary with the baby Jesus. And we can put her in the middle of our Advent wreath during Advent. And I have to get used to putting this in the center of the screen, don't I? Yes. So here we have the little baby. And at Epiphany, folks, we have another baby. With these arms out, because that's the whole point. Our mission here in this world is to love each other so much that we, in a way, radiate the love of God that has made us to the world. So here's the baby. This is for 12th night. This is for Epiphany. So you just have to put up with my shaky hands, I guess. That's the way it is. Now, next to our art shop, we had a corn crib, a wonderful corn crib. It was summertime. It was August. So in order to help me focus on making this nativity set, which everybody wanted me to do next, they brought me food, and I was in that corn crib. It was a delightful time. It sounds like a punishment, but it wasn't at all. It was a privilege. So I had my food brought to me in this corn crib. And here we have this Joseph. Okay, I've been trying all year to make a Joseph. He turned out looking like a fat baker most of the time. Until finally, during that week, he came pretty nice. So you can see what a simple image this is. It's very, very simple, of a Joseph and Mary and a baby. And then we have the shepherds. Now here's the big shepherd. And he brings a gift. And his gift is a little lamb, which rests on his arm. And there's a couple of other shepherds here, little ones, a little boy. And he's bringing a dove. Everyone has their gift. And we have a little girl. And
beautiful,
beautiful,
Trina.
She has a basket. She has a little basket. And in families, people can put little jewels and little things in it, and little berries and stuff like that. So this has been used by families all over the place over the years. So I'll put it down here. Oh, and there's a sheep. And one of the things none of us could quite believe, by the end of the week that I was given, the whole thing came out in proper perspective to one another, I couldn't believe it. I had some finishing up to do. I had to work on faces and details, but it worked together, and it really was so successful. So this is the beginning of the second year, 1953, we're talking about, of our art production program. And so we made it ourselves for like 20 years. And then we sold the whole thing to Abbey Press that made it for another 10 years. And my son has made it. And we have some odd pieces around. This whole thing could be done again. The molds and the originals are in my basement. If we ever find a way to produce it, it's a project to put it back in production again. So here we have this. Now you imagine what they ask me the next year? We want the kings. Oh, this thing is so simple. It's almost like a rural scene. Kings, kings. How do I put this glittery stuff like my crown and gold stuff and the king, what you think of as kings? How do you put that in the picture? I couldn't figure that out. And then I read the scriptures, and it wasn't kings at all. They're wise men who came from the East. And then I heard Lowell Thomas speak about how they found the Dalai Lama. Still today, that's how they do it. There's a little baby that's born, and the wise men of Nepal, no, no, Afghanistan,
Tibet.
Tibet, yes, Tibet, would go with their some of the effects and some of the bowls and some of the things of the old Dalai Lama. They would follow a star in our time, in my own lifetime here. They would follow the star and they would go in and visit the family. And if the baby reached out to one of the effects of the Dalai Lama, they would bring him to the monastery and raise him as the new Dalai Lama. And I thought, oh my goodness gracious. So the concept for the wise men, I'm going to get up and bring them over closer. That one I just told you about could bring myrrh. And the one gift that I don't have available to me right now is the begging bowl that goes with him. It's a big begging bowl. So then the concept of the 8 nations of the world coming and the light to all the Gentiles, not just the Jewish people. Jesus was Jewish after all. And the idea of the children of Abraham. So here we are. And this is the African. And I didn't have a terracotta colored gift, so I put the white one in. So here's the African with a great sense of the beauty of this earth and a feeling of the of appreciation of earth and everything. So here he is. And then, there's another vast number of people in this world, which we know a lot about these days. The Arab world, with their gift of frankincense, of the incense. So here we have them. And so it worked. It worked. And we sold them separately, the king set. We sold the three figures, main figures, Mary, Jesus, and Joseph. And we sold the shepherd set. And we sold the 10 pieces together. It was a way that we earned the money from our movement. And then there's a legend of the fourth wise man. And I made a Chinese man. This has never been produced. But I'm showing you today my mother's nativity that she had always up. And we put the wise man, the fourth wise man with that one. That's never been produced. At one point I made a cow and a donkey because that's traditional. But they were so big, they didn't seem to fit. But here's a donkey that was occasionally produced. And my son loved to make the donkey when he was doing it. So that still could be done. That would be 18 pieces. So to get all those made together at one time, that's been the challenge. Like right now, I have various numbers of these various pieces. So perhaps I should turn back so you can see me a bit since
Yes,
done.
please.
Okay.
Thank you.
So here I am. And it was a wonderful, beautiful adventure. And then that whole thing with the wise men and discovering that. So if there's anybody on this, if they want to reach out to hopefortheflowers.com and contact me, I could send you the printed explanations of this, sort of the same story, but in the printed version. Because when somebody has bought the nativity, I would send them these explanations so that they had the story behind it to make it more interesting for them. So you'll see in the background what you've seen before, if you've been on this, my refugee Madonna. And then you see this white Madonna here. This is a big one. We made a big set for churches and such. That was toward the end of our whole production thing in the middle of the 60s. And we never made lots of them. It was a lot more difficult to ship and to make them and cast them. And so that never went so far, but we could do that all again if we had enough marketing, shall we say. And that won't be me to put that into production. That'll be the people who leave behind, who I leave behind. So I'm not making any decisions about policy anymore myself at 92. It'll have to be the people who follow these things. And and we'll have to make some sort of a trust to put it all in. And besides these production items that we could cast and make more of, there are originals that I care about. And I need to be working with that. And I find it very hard. I find it very hard, Scott, for probably all of us to think about what happens when we're not here anymore and how we distribute what we know and have and our goods.
Well, it's been a real blessing, and thank you so much, Trina, for sharing your nativity and and some of the history behind the whole thing. And we'll be working on it, but especially for today, it's just been real great that you were able to share that. Thank you. Do you have any closing words before we sign off?
Just think for yourself at the moment, if you dare think about the daringness of the wondrous exchange of a loving God who created us with our human nature and all our frailties and mistakes and problems, that God took this on in great love for us. And we're offered this freely. We have to choose. It's not forced on us at all. And it's a very daring thing to believe it. So I try. Okay.